Frustration, even after Arizona's Child Welfare Agency is revamped.
Why do we keep doing this? Why do we see a need and still want to fill it, even though it's so heartbreaking, even though it just, why? I don't know.
The agency's director answers questions about what's changed and what is still the same.
We have to ensure child safety, we have to strengthen families, and we have to achieve permanency.
This is Arizona Week. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Lorraine Rivera. There are more than 17,000 children in the state's child welfare system. Last year, Arizona's Child Welfare Agency underwent massive changes. Originally known as Child Protective Services, it's now known as the Department of Child Safety. Daniela Preciado is a former foster child who's now a foster mother, and she says there's been very little change to the agency. Daniela, CPS is now the Department of Child Safety.
Yeah.
Have you seen changes in the system since the name changed?
No,
Everything's the same.
it feels the same.
Does anything feel differently? Because they say there is some changes being made, though it will take time.
We got 2 letters within the last year just explaining that things have changed and thank you for being a foster parent, and that was it. It was an email letter that we got introducing the new person, and that was it. Other than that, we haven't seen anything else. The budget's still the same. You get $150. This is from 0 to 18 years of age for the whole entire year for clothing. That is all the child gets. $150. It is it. And the case managers normally break it up. They give you $75 the first 6 months and then another $75 for the other 6 months.
But you've had children for years.
Of course, 3 years, that's the longest we've had them. And where does that burden fall under? It falls under the foster, of course. I'm not going to let my kids go without.
How many years have you been a foster mom?
7 years.
How many children in 7 years?
19,
It's taxing on you emotionally.
yes.
Tell me what just happened. You had a little toddler here and she was returned to her family.
Yes, we had her for over a year. And she was with us on and off since she was born from the hospital. I did respite care and very close to her foster mom. And it was ruled for her to go back. And the case manager waited till the last minute. He knew that she was supposed to go back a week ago, didn't do it. The dad's attorney complained. And she got picked up at daycare, returned back to her dad. Didn't get to say goodbye, didn't get to kiss her goodbye or wave goodbye, nothing.
And then a caseworker shows up to pick up.
Calls me and says I'll be there within a couple hours to pick up her stuff.
You haven't seen or heard from this little girl.
Nothing. We don't know anything at all.
That's heartbreaking. How do you keep doing this?
That's the question. Why? Why do we keep doing this? Why do we see a need and still want to fill it, even though it's so heartbreaking, even though it just, why? I don't know.
And in the case of this toddler, you feel that the state chose to do it this way, and they could have done it differently.
He could have done it differently. He could have told the father, you know what, can you at least give him 24 hours to say goodbye to, Not only that, could you imagine her whole little life? She only saw her dad, for about maybe 4 hours a day, twice a week. And all of a sudden she's gone from everything, her crib, her toys. Mom, I was mom.
There are people watching this who will say the little girl, the little boy, they always belong with mom or dad. That's the best case scenario.
They do. I have sent home a lot of my kids. Out of all the kids I've had, not including the 3 I have right now, they've all gone home except for 2 went up for adoption. I have a very successful rate of working with the parents, regardless of them being on meth, being in jail, being abusive. There is help out there, and they do get it if they want their kids hard enough. But that's just it. They need to want their children.
Do you think this little girl's better off with her father?
No. This was one case I did not agree with her being returned home. It was not safe.
So when this happened, did you call the state? Did you say that this was...
I did. I talked to her attorney. I talked to them in court. and I was not heard.
Did you have some faith when the state said we are revamping the system? Did you have some faith that things would turn around and be better for people like you, the foster parents who had opened their homes?
I did. I had a little bit of hope. Yeah, it's gone though, because nothing has changed.
Some people might say it's still too new. It's been about a year. Is that fair time to see that much transition?
I think there's a lot of changes that can be made to make things easier for foster parents who, you know, you can see a foster parent's record. You can see how many children they've helped out, how many they haven't, how many they've adopted. I mean, it's there. It's in black and white. Why can't they see that and admire that and say, let's learn from them? Let's learn what this family is doing right by sending so many kids home or doing the extra mile and working with the biological parents. That's huge.
What are some things that you think the state could do right now that would just totally change things on their end?
Budget would be one. Huge. That would take a huge burden off of foster parents. And the other one would be just to literally sit down and evaluate their employees. A lot of these case managers have no idea what they're doing. You don't send a cook to make a gourmet meal when they don't know how to cook. You just don't do that. Why would you send a case manager to work with people who are manipulative? They've manipulated the system. When I'm talking about their food stamps, they're on welfare, all of that. Why would you do that? They've manipulated the system. They've gotten what they've gotten, and their child is now taken away. And, oh, but, you know, I'm a drug addict. I need help. Yeah, you do need help. But do you want the help? Or are you just going to, you know, play this game?
As a foster mom, you've continued to take in children. Do you know everything about these kids that you're bringing in?
No, we don't.
The state hasn't maybe vetted the children, or they're not giving you the full story when you open your home?
I don't think they're giving us the full story most of the time. I think they want to place a child, you know, especially versus a group home or a shelter, than to place them in a foster home. They want them in that foster home. And yes, I think some information is withheld. It is. And half of the time they don't even know too. That has been a lot of the case where they don't even know. Where the child comes here and they're starting to tell us stories, you know. Oh, well, this and this happened to me, you know, when I was living there. Well, did you ever tell anybody? No.
So that changes the dynamic of your expectation when the child comes in, and you need to prepare yourself for
I need to prepare myself physically, mentally, and then I need to prepare the rest of my family. You know, just keeping them safe and at the same time, you know, helping this child. Because regardless, it's a child and they need help. They need therapy. They need services put in place. And the thing is if nobody sees this, if nobody ever decided to talk to this kid, it goes under the rug.
We'll have more from Daniela later in the show, but now we're hearing from Greg McKay, the Director of Child Safety. This spring, McKay was appointed to lead the agency. Over the summer, an audit of the Arizona Department of Child Safety found more money is needed to tackle some of the issues plaguing the agency. McKay sat down with our Phoenix affiliate, KAET, to describe some of the change taking place within the agency. Here's a portion of that interview.
Well, lots changed. We're looking at many things as far as stabilizing this organization moving forward. The major change was when Governor Brewer issued the proclamation that removed the Division of Children, Youth, and Families from the Department of Economic Security to a standalone Department of Child Safety. So, you know, that was, a lot of work went into getting a new freestanding agency that kind of flew alone outside of the umbrella agency that we used to be under. So, you know, it's ours to make now. So there's a lot of work that went into that.
Indeed, and as far as why CPS needed to go, what do you think? Why did it have to go? Why did that change have to be made?
Well, I don't think they had to go. I think that there was some restructuring and I think more of an emphasis on the core elements of what we did. Being contained within a Department of Economic Security was helpful in certain respects, but in some respects, having an autonomous agency with the sole purpose of ensuring child safety, seeking faster permanency, helping strengthening families, I think was a good thing, and it was good for our staff to have kind of a new culture of change, a theory of change to move towards, being a proud workforce. We got an important job, and it's a hard job and a thankless job for so many people. And I think the exclusivity of having our own agency dedicated to that mission is an important step in the right direction.
Were there lessons learned, and are there lessons that can be utilized from CPS, and especially the failings of CPS?
Certainly. I mean, this is the problems of CPS and DCS and child welfare overall have been growing for years. The problems started back in the early 2000s, and child welfare has always been a very challenged government service, protecting children and dealing with struggling families. So the lessons learned are, some of the lessons that we're learning are, everything is about volume. And the amount of volume that our government agency takes in and is responsible for, and the amount of capacity the system has to deal with that volume. And that's from the amount of workforce we have, to the amount of foster homes and foster families we have, to the amount of courtrooms and judges and attorneys we have. So it really is a system that requires shared accountability, a responsibility that goes way outside the walls of Child Protective Services, or now DCS, to make sure the systems run appropriately. So, we're still learning those lessons, but mainly we have to decide what are we responsible for, and that we are mandated to do that and do that well every time to the best of our ability, and not try to be responsible for all things all the time, because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of what if and a lot of unknown. And one of the biggest problems with our workforce is when they go home at night, can they close their eyes and rest knowing that they did the right thing or didn't do the right thing, and what that potential tragic outcome might be. It's a daunting position to be in.
Some people, again, are being fired, though, and we're hearing reports and hearing things that they don't know, there's no rhyme or reason for some of the firings going on there, and that nothing is clear, that you run kind of a my way or the highway kind of administration, if you will.
Right.
Is that valid?
Oh, I don't believe so at all. And there is a problem with that inherently. Personnel rules, personnel laws prohibit discussing why an employee was dismissed from service. You're not allowed to have that conversation. Co-workers aren't allowed to know what took place. There's no coaching, or there's no breaking down that information and understanding why someone left. So what that does is when somebody was here today and gone tomorrow, and there's no reasonable explanation for that, people start to look around and say, when am I next, right? So I think that that's inherently a personnel rule flaw, that you can't really talk to people. Now, when it comes to my way or the highway, absolutely not. I know I have a critical mission here, and that mission is involving about 50,000 reports of abuse or neglect this year, over 17,000 children in care, and the time to get them out of the system and into a family, whether that family is their own or a new adoptive family, is running years. And we can't afford to have things that aren't mission critical working towards that common goal every day. What is our mission? That children thrive in family environments free from abuse and neglect. That's what we're aiming towards. And every day people come to work, they have to know we have to ensure child safety, we have to strengthen families, and we have to achieve permanency. And to do that, I need a competent workforce that's able to go out there and engage families. And if I don't have that, I have to build that. And in some situations, we've had to lose some staff to do that.
You were quoted, I think during the oversight meeting, as saying things might get worse before they get better. Still believe that?
Yes, possibly. Yes. And I'll tell you why. Because for a very long time, there's been root causes to the problems of this particular organization, cultural and operational root causes. And I think that there's been times with all the pressure, people are sick of hearing about this. It is emotionally heart-wrenching to hear about continuous child abuse and neglect, continuous problem. They want answers. But these answers, they don't just come with like that. And what I'm committed to is really saying, look, we are pulling the Band-Aid. We're looking at the underlying wound of this place, and we are going to treat it in a way that it is going to be sustainable and improved long term. And we're not just going to do things to capture some type of quick artificial metric to say, hey, we did this, because it's intense. The pressure is on. You know, and I am committed to doing the real things, delivering the real goods, so that down the road, our system is better for it. Children are better for it, our communities are better for it, and trust is regained in our organization. And our staff stays employed here because they're proud to do it.
Casa de los Niños is one of the many organizations that works closely with the Department of Child Safety. And joining me now is CEO Susie Hune. Susie, thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
First off, this week there was a conference. Tell us a little bit about that.
There was. We were so excited. It was the 21st Child Abuse Prevention Conference, and definitely something our state needs to be focusing on is prevention, because we're an outlier in states across the country that have had huge increases in the number of kids coming into our child welfare system. So we had record numbers, 750 folks from around the state, including Greg McKay, the director of DCS, and policymakers. So it was great to have them in the room and to hear the conversations from keynotes and from breakout sessions talking about how we have to get out in front of this issue.
What would you say is maybe the main takeaway from that conference, the 2 days that you learned the most?
Well, currently, I think the reason we're in the shape we're in is because we stopped investing and actually cut back on all of our prevention services and safety nets, back in 2009 when the recession hit. And so we made some conscious decisions as a state to not fund certain things and to cut certain things to the bone: child care, health insurance for children, all the kind of safety net and prevention programs, home visiting for new moms. And we're paying for that. And so we didn't notice right away the effects of those cuts, but by 2011 we started seeing reports rise. And we didn't pay attention to that in 2012, and we didn't pay attention to that. And it wasn't until the end of 2013 that we had astronomical increases and ran out of capacity to manage all those kids in the system that we said, we got to do something. And that's when they worked on legislation to carve out the new Department of Child Safety.
More than 17,000 children in the system right now.
Correct.
But there's an even more staggering number that bothers you.
Yeah, it's what we call 16,000 uninvestigated cases. And this isn't a new problem. It goes back to before they took it out from underneath DES. There was that same issue, that same pot of uninvestigated, which means maybe some of them were not investigated. Some were investigated, some were open and just not appropriately closed because workers left and came and gone with turnover. However, it's 16,000 cases, we don't know what they are, which is the scary thought. Or what's in them. And so it's a monumental task to take care of that while you're also trying to take care of the increased influx of new kids coming into the system with not enough resources.
What is the problem in Arizona that the numbers are simply so high? I mean, 16,000, that's a small city.
Well, I think, yes, it could fill McHale easily. And if you start to think about stadiums it could fill of children, is really an unsettling picture. In Arizona, we really did consciously make some decisions of some cuts that we just never revisited until it got so out of hand. And do I think we did the right thing when we pulled it out from DES and shine the public light on it and all of those things? You bet. I think that was the exact right thing to do. But until we really make some long-term systemic changes and we make a commitment as a state and as policymakers and as this governor and the next governor and the future governors, that we are going to take care of our children first and foremost the best way we can. Until we make that conscious effort, that conscious statement, say it out loud and fund it, we'll always be cycling through these crises.
And an audit says that more money is needed. Some
Correct.
Politicians say you can't just throw money at the problem.
No, but you took away so much money that you never gave back at a time when we had 9,000 kids in out-of-home care. Well, we have close to almost 18,000 kids in out-of-home care. So you can't equate the two. It's one thing to have the funding when we had 9, now we have double the amount. Of course you need more money. You need more money to put the Band-Aid on the kids there now and help them get out of the system quicker, hopefully reunify or find a forever home for them. And we also have to do all of this at the same time, which costs more money up front, is you have to do prevention up front to prevent families from coming into the system. And until we can get upstream to stop the flow, we're never going to fix downstream. And yes, it costs a lot more money for a while to do both. But if you do enough up here, eventually you'll spend more down the road. You'll spend less down the road.
Explain to the viewers how Casa de los Niños actually works with the state.
Well, we work with the state on many different levels. Prevention, we believe in wholeheartedly, so we do a lot of home visiting programs, nurse-family partnership, parents as teachers, really working with first-time moms to say, you're a mom now, and none of us had kids they didn't come with really good instruction books, to support them and say, what do you need to help you grow your children and nurture your family and make sure that kids get off to a good start, show up to school ready to learn. That's the best thing we can do. It's also the best return on our investment. So we do a whole host of home visiting programs and free parenting classes for anybody. Anybody can just go on our website. We have all kinds of free parenting classes and resources for families. Then once kids are identified at risk or are part of the Child Protective Service system, we do a lot of work to help those families reunify, because most kids want to go back and be with their family. And sometimes that family may be their biological mom or dad, it may be grandparents, it may be aunts or uncles, but we still need to support the process to get those families intact, get them healthy, get them strong, so that those kids can go back. 60% of kids in the system will go back home. So let's make sure they've got a really positive home and a healthy home to go back to. And then 5 years ago, we opened a behavioral health treatment center outpatient. So we serve about 3,500 children in that role, where we're actually really helping kids to heal, families to heal. A lot of our parents today were our kids of yesterday. And they have a lot of unresolved issues, unresolved trauma that they experienced. And so we really need to help in the healing process. Once again, that's how you stop the cycle from repeating itself.
Have you noticed a difference as the CEO? Have you noticed a difference working with the state now?
Well, I'll say some things got better really fast. And, it's not even been 2 full years. We're on our 2nd director, so consistency is going to be really important, and our 2nd governor, because this all started under Brewer, and then we had an election. So it's going to take time to have that consistency long term. But some of the immediate fixes we did right away was the hotline. People used to be online on hold for 45 minutes, calls were dropped, awful things. So basically we were missing a whole lot of reports. So we got that fixed, and now we have more reports, and now we have more kids coming into the system, but that wasn't a bad thing to fix, and we're glad we did. The other areas still need a lot of work, and that is, how do we move children through the system in a timely manner so kids aren't languishing in foster care? And at the same time, how do we prevent families? So almost 75 to 80% of all of our calls are what we call neglect calls. Chronic neglect could be poverty, unstable housing, unemployment. Now we've cut TANF support for moms. Next year it'll only be a year total. Those are supports that help these families stay out of the system. And so we've got to do a better job of kind of wrapping our arms around those families early on, delivering in-home services to those families so we can keep the kids in the home. Reduces the trauma to the children, to the families, and as well as the cost to the system.
All right, Susie Hune, and as you said, focus on the positive advancements that are made.
You bet.
Okay, Susie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And here's more of my interview with Daniela Preciado, a foster mother who in the last 7 years has welcomed nearly 20 children into her home. Why do you keep doing this? I mean, you're a former foster kid, and
Yeah.
the past interviews we've had, you said that you want to do this to help kids.
The recent question that everybody's been asking me, and one of the other foster parents that I knew told me this, and it's true. Mentally, it's very hard to say, I don't want to do this anymore. Mentally, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. But in your heart, that's another story. In your heart, you still feel that need. You still feel that want to help somebody. You still feel that want to, they need to be here. I need to do this. And it's starting to get to the point where my heart is starting to give out. You know, that last baby that got it, I feel like somebody just took my child from me. If I would have been able to have closure, it would have been easier. I would have been able to put that behind me, and it's okay. Because I've had other babies in the past, but not when they're just yanked away from you.
There are other foster parents who feel like you do.
Yes, we're burdened. We're burned. You know, with the budget, with the way the case managers, you know, are treating us. I understand there's bad foster parents. I totally get that. Yes, it's been in the media, but there's good foster parents that do this from their heart. And if they were to dig a little more, they would notice that there is good foster parents. We're not doing it for the money. What money? You know, we're not doing it to glorify ourselves as great people. No, you can tell when people are doing this to do it from their heart. You could see it in the children. And case managers need to understand that. The state needs to understand that.
Do you think that you're kind of feeling that maybe this is not the best move for you anymore?
I feel that way, like I said, mentally, but in my heart's still really open. Every child I get, I see how they start off and I see how they, you know, finish off once their journey's done in our home, and it is so rewarding to me. That part is so rewarding. Not only that, but what my children, my biological children, have learned. I have 2 children, and that if I wouldn't have done this, they would have never known what it's like to live with multiple siblings. You know, my daughter would have never known what it's like to wipe a baby's face, you know, or help out to feed her, help get her bottle. She would have never experienced that. That's big.
What is it that keeps you going? How are you able to manage all this emotion and this stress?
The chance to make a change. I think a change starts with you. If you do something, if you change somebody's life, it just moves along, because it happened to me, because my foster parents changed my life. So I still feel that way. If I can change that child's life, if I can expose them to a different life than what they had seen in the past, they'll want it. They'll grow up to be an adult to want that, to want to work, to want to have a good home, to want to have nice things, to work hard for them and be an example. And that's just what it is.
And that's our program. For all of us at Arizona Public Media, I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us.